This is one of those catch-22 situations where I don't think anybody comes out looking good. Whether it be the people who made the movie, the people in front of the movie, or the people reviewing the movie. Because somehow, someway, someone is going to be disappointed and somebody's gonna get hurt tonight. Just like the Eagle said. Whether it be the people watching the reviews on YouTube or the people creating the reviews on YouTube, I posted an impressions walking out of the theater, and I've never seen that dislike thumbs down be hit so quickly. Wow. How could that possibly be? So, the least I can ask of you guys is to wait until the end of the video to decide to hit thumbs up, thumbs down, or post your comments. For now, I'm just going to say that I finally returned home from watching Venom, and here are my impressions. So the way that a volcano is constructed by the mere miraculously conjuncture of both water and hot lava, Sony managed to make a standalone Venom movie without the presence of Spider-Man. And despite their better judgment and our wise words from amongst many fans, they still released it anyway, continued to release material, and here we are with it now hitting theaters. And the writing was very plainly on the wall that maybe this is not going to make for one of the best movie-going experiences. But, it's Spider-Man related, it's Marvel related. We gotta have some kind of an obligation to ourselves and to the community to go and check it out. I know I've had people at work say, why are you supporting a potentially bad movie by paying for a ticket? It's because I have a YouTube channel. If it wasn't for the YouTube channel, I honestly think that I might have waited until Discount Tuesday at the very least. But I know that I needed to report to you guys with my findings, especially since I am, as I've stated before, a Spider-Man fan. Half of my name in the channel username is Spider for Spider-Man. He's one of my favorite, if not maybe my favorite superhero ever, aside from Batman. In fact, I would probably say that Spider-Man ranks higher than Batman because of how much more relatable he is to me as a person than Batman ever was. Batman is white and he's rich. Don't relate to that whatsoever. Peter Parker, yeah, he may be white, but he's not rich, and he finds himself often in situations that are more of the everyday common man or common woman type of situation that we can all relate to. But that's not what this movie is about. This movie is about Eddie Brock, the reporter slash, go-to guy that's trying to get to the bottom of the truth of everything because he has just that aggressive sort of nature, who finds himself attached to a symbiotic alien from outer space through circumstances that happen in this movie that, again, are trying to really solidify themselves in their own universe that exists without Spider-Man, but maybe it kind of does, and I'll mention why it kind of maybe does later without hopefully giving too much away. But Eddie forms a symbiotic relationship of sorts with this symbiote in which they together form a creature named Venom. And Venom becomes the anti-hero that we usually don't come to expect to kind of pull off the heroics or anti-heroics that he does in this movie against the evil corporation. Because there's always an evil corporation called the Life Foundation, headed up by Carlton Blake, played by Riz Ahmed, who plays our main antagonist, because Venom wasn't already an antagonist before. So at this point, I think you've already seen a handful of advanced reviews calling this possibly one of the worst movies of the year. Somebody even went to the hyperbolic extent of calling, or comparing this rather, to Catwoman. Here's the deal. It's not Catwoman bad. Catwoman is fucking atrocious. This is not atrocious. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that it's not too bad. But, saying that this is not too bad is to say, like, you were expecting to have diarrhea because of how it felt, but then you go, and it comes out solid. And you think to yourself, oh, that was healthy. Still didn't feel right. Came out fine, but it still felt like it was about to be diarrhea, and I was kind of sore. That's Venom. Of course, we're all familiar with the prospect that Venom is a main villain for Spider-Man. Some will argue that probably his biggest villain, because he knows Peter's true identity. He knows all his strengths and weaknesses. He came off of him. And that was the entire plot of how the Venom came to be in the Spider-Man comics. And I'm pretty sure the majority of watching this video know exactly what he was all about. The similarities between this movie and that is that he did come from outer space. And actually, some of the interpretations of the comics and the cartoons do have a inkling in which the symbiote, or symbiotes, kind of hinting at, do kind of hitch a ride with with a spaceship, they kind of plant some seeds that are similar to that of the comic or that original version of Venom, but because of just where Spider-Man finds himself now being shared with the MCU, couldn't really handle that, so they do their best of what they got, and it's not necessarily the most terrible thing. I just think that amongst the amalgamation of how they decided to treat the symbiote, and they do call it the symbiote in this movie. Spoilers, they changed the pronunciation of the word symbiote. It's not symbiote.
We call them symbiote.
They actually went ahead and changed it. It's kind of laughable how they really pivoted on that on the last second, but yeah, they did that.
Symbiote.
But the way they kind of worked around and tiptoeing around them not having Spider-Man, it's not necessarily the worst thing imaginable, but at the same time, it's far from even being the best, primarily because of the inclusion of the evil corporation. Riz Ahmed and this entire construct of the Life Foundation testing on people and potentially killing them, and therefore giving Venom a justification to be the anti-hero that he is. Scratch it. It's easily the worst thing out of the entire movie because they just have very archetypal goons that Riz Ahmed is controlling, and then his motivations and the way he plays his character. He's better than this. He's way better than this, and Jesus Christ, it's just a completely wasted faction of the entire movie. Now, on the flip side of that coin is probably the best thing about the movie. Tom Hardy. It's the one thing that you're going to hear universally from almost any critic out there is that Tom Hardy manages to really carry the entirety of this movie on his shoulders. And those are some very, very trap fuel shoulders he's got himself on. All right, it's just funny because it doesn't look like he's missed a beat ever since he filmed the likes of The Dark Knight Rises or Warrior, where he's got those giant ass traps that you could probably, cook a filet mignon off of them. I'm jealous of the guy. I gotta give my respect to where it's due. Dude keeps up his shape, and it's cool that he's still kind of lumbering around that way. And it's also because of his likable personality and the way he played Eddie Brock here that I was like, okay, yeah, sure. This is not the villain that we've used to seeing in the form of Eddie Brock, but at least this version of the character, I was welcomed to the idea or prospect of seeing more movies with him in it as long as he plays it this way. Because sure, maybe from the writing standpoint he wasn't given the best material, but Tom Hardy brought his A game, and it really made me think about the concept that I don't think Tom Hardy has had a bad performance up until this point. Oh yeah, Michelle Williams is in this movie. That's all you really need to know. And I hate saying that because I really want to empower her, because she genuinely is an amazing actress. She's been in a shit ton of movies where she's brought her A game. She flat out said right before the release of this movie that she took this movie because she wanted to work with Tom Hardy and because of the money. And it clearly shows, because there's scenes where she's kind of okay. There's some scenes where she's genuinely terrible. Alright, enough of that. The movie's called Venom. How is the symbiote himself, Venom? I liked him. You know what? I liked him. The way that the movie kind of encompasses him is atrocious, because so many instances, the director, Ruben Fleischer, who's mostly known for directing one of my favorite horror comedies, Zombieland, really, really wants to go into that R rating. He really, really does. But man, so many wasted moments. And honestly, the reason for why I feel really sad about those wasted moments is because I really liked this version of the symbiote. The way he talked, the way he worked with Eddie, the relationship he had with Eddie, and also just the effects was kind of a mixed bag. In moments he looked a little bad. It was that effect where the effects didn't look terrible, but I can look at the frame and easily crop out the effect out with my head. And I've always said that that's a golden rule. If I can crop out the effect out of the shot with my head, it's a bad effect. That means I can actually see the layers of, like, here's the effect and then here's the shot. It has to blend in. And many shots that actually did happen with the symbiote. And then others, when he was in full Venom mode, I was kind of getting used to it. I was like, all right, I can kind of see him kind of waddling around here in this earth and, doing his antics, his anti-heroic antics. And again, the personality behind Venom and the way he was working with Eddie Brock, I actually kind of liked. What I think would have helped out even better, not only for the relationship between Eddie Brock and Venom, but also the action sequences and just the way that the symbiote felt, for lack of a better term, organic to this movie, is the pacing. Because the pacing is immensely bad in this movie. And I gotta, give points for trying to Tom Hardy to cover the tracks of this happening, because before the movie released, he did say that all of his favorite scenes, which amounted to about 30 to 40 minutes of footage, were cut out from the movie. And it shows, because the pacing is just all over the place, and before we know it, we're in the climax. A very CG-filled, gooey, trash bag-looking climax. And I'm like, we're already here? This is the big, battle in the sky type thing? And before we know it, we're within 5 minutes of the credits rolling. Okay. Well, that didn't feel like... It's funny because usually I want to say that that's a compliment when 2 hours go by fast, but this needed more time. This needed more time to breathe. We needed more time to spend with the symbiote, and we needed to kind of establish a good flow from tone to tone, because we had certain scenes that were comedic, followed right by scenes where the symbiote did some really horrific shit that, again, would teeter on that R rating, where you're like, wait, okay, there should be blood. This is really frustrating me that there's no blood or no gore here, because somebody just got slashed and yet there's nothing. And nothing pisses me off more than that. And of course, the easy person or, conglomerate to kind of point to for this would be Sony the studio, because they want to keep it at the PG-13 level and get as many asses in seats as possible. And that just doesn't work. It needs to start from the blueprint level of the script. And if you don't decide it there, it's not going to work. So when you bring in elements that just feel so out of place, like Venom eating people the way that he should, or other symbiotes doing some really potentially graphic things, such as in the ending, then you need to go full on or don't bother to do it at all. It really pisses me off, shit like that. And it's possible that maybe somewhere lost within those 30 to 40 minutes would have been a really proper identity for the movie, because again, ever so often, they would name drop a certain someone or a certain something that kind of alludes to Spider-Man existing in this universe, but at the same time, the movie's just so in its own little corner of the universe that the only thing that I can think of is just Sony trying to juggle some balls because they want to keep those balls and not hand them over to the MCU for Disney. And it's funny because I did get accused in a comment on that Impressions video that I posted as I was walking out of the theater, that said that the only reason why I didn't like Venom is because Spider-Man wasn't in it. Spider-Man was the furthest thing from my mind when walking out. It was because of just how they constructed the movie. Because something that I always tell so many of my peers and friends is that you can take a really outlandish idea and make it into a great film. I think decades ago, people would have laughed at the concept of a black man dating a white woman and then going to visit her parents, and then her parents are kind of crazy and he finds himself in a very racially tense situation. But here we have Get Out winning an Academy Award. It can work. Venom, I think, could have worked, even without Spider-Man. It would have been far-fetched, but with the right talent behind it, which I thought they had with Ruben Fleischer coming off of Zombieland, I thought, you know what? I think he can handle some horror comedy / anti-hero-ish aspects about the movie. I think this could work. Tom Hardy, yeah, he played Bane, but I think he can be a decent Eddie Brock. And then more and more got layered on over to the movie that just, again, started to really diminish my expectations for the movie. So technically speaking, I can't say I was disappointed, but so many of those missed opportunities just make me think of what could have been. So I'm going to be giving Venom a very, very immensely low 6 out of 10. And that 6 is only there because of Mr. Tom Hardy, who, again, I don't think he's able to do wrong with his performance. Maybe he's not always given the best material, but he can definitely elevate it to where it could have been. Also, if you're going to check this movie out, letting you know, there is an end credit scene halfway through. Don't stick around until the very end. There's nothing at the very end, but halfway through there is an end credit scene that I think is kind of interesting, but at the same time, after watching the movie, I just can't get myself hyped. I wish I could, but I just can't. I'll be interested, but just let me know when you hand those rights over to Marvel, Sony, and you're ready to cave in, because I'm pretty sure that they're ready to clean up the mess. So anyways, guys, that does it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments below if you guys are going to be seeing Venom. If you've already seen it, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Keep it spoiler free. I don't know if I'm going to do a spoiler review. I'm scared that if I'm going to dive deeper and deeper into this movie, I'm going to end up really hating it. I just kind of want to walk away. It's one of those movies where I'm like, okay, you know, I don't hate it. I don't think it's bad, but it's definitely not great, not even good. But I feel like if I just keep, you know, looking in this horse's mouth, I'm going to find something really terrible. And it's just not going to do it. And going to give myself a very bad experience. And that I'm not going to be able to easily walk away from. So I'm going to just leave it alone. Keep it spoiler free in the comments. Make sure you like or dislike this video. I don't really care. Share it, definitely, to spread the word. And of course, subscribe for more videos coming soon. Until next time, guys. I'll check you later. The Peter Parker that we know and love was still there. There was never a point where I hated him. I actually enjoyed watching him on screen. Multiple times, he actually did manage to make me laugh with a couple of the quips. Like I said, I felt like he was quipping a little too much, where his hit and miss ratio was a little higher than past Spider-Man that I have watched, both in live action and cartoon.
Ah! Nice move, Webhead. Now you know what a wrecking ball feels like. If I wanted to ride the tilt-a-whirl, I'd have gone to Coney Island.